Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Healer's Journey webinar. Tonight we present Science and Soul. This is me. I'm Rosemary Levac, and my book, Heal Together, Natural Health Solutions for Animals and Their Humans, is available on Amazon. It feels like I need to be expanding that book because there's so much more that has come around since in my life since I wrote that book, since I published it. But that's another story for another time. Right now, I want to ask you some questions that we have talked about before. Who are you? Is what I asked last week. Who are you? And this week I'm adding, where are you from? We have biological origins, we have geographic origins, and we have soul origins. And I just want to share with you briefly, I asked somebody not long ago, where are you from? And she answered that she grew up in, such and such a state in the middle of the United States. And the more I worked on her, I said, no, well, that may be where you grew up, but that's not where you're from. Because I was getting information on her soul origin that was different from her biological one and her geographic one. So I wanted to expand more on that because it was a very interesting revelation. Let's get started. And DNA is the code of life. If you're watching this live, you can see there's an artistic rendition of DNA over on the left side. It is chemically made up of long strands of phosphate and sugar molecules that form the sides of the ladder, and it is bridged together by nitrogen bases. So the nitrogen bases, when they bond together, form the rungs of the ladder. And of course, DNA has a twist to it. It is a double helix. Cytosine bonds with guanine, adenine bonds with thymine, and in RNA, uracil replaces thymine. And I mention these now because they'll be important in a discussion later on, and we're digging into your biological backgrounds, right? So DNA, the code of life, we talk about genes. Genes are the segments of DNA, and there's a lot of DNA that makes up genes. So many genes compose a chromosome, and this is how it's all put together. So we've got pieces of DNA, we've got bunches of DNA that form genetic information, and they are coded by their bases. Scientists have determined that certain code sequences represent proteins as well as the beginning or ending of a protein sequence. So they've been studying this for a long time. In fact, the Human Genome Project, which I believe is at least 10 years after completion now, maps the gene sequences to provide a manual or a human blueprint. And this genome project has discovered similarities between humans and other organisms. I believe I mentioned this in one of my earlier webinars about the similarity between yeast and fruit flies and mice and human genes. And part of this was studied in the Human Genome Project. It was also used to discover gene sequences that identify diseases. And in order to monetize this, of course, there are companies that would like to craft drugs that are gene-specific. And, with a very good intention as well, that if they can identify diseases by the genes, perhaps there can be an early discovery, perhaps there can be some treatment, and that's the cycle that modern medicine is going through. Now, also, the Human Genome Project helps us to understand evolution and perhaps even the preservation of species. There can be agricultural applications. Of course, there are always agricultural applications. And if we map the sequences that reflect our ethnic origin, we can see our ethnic origin based on similarities with genes in specific geographic locations. And there are companies who do genetic testing now. You find these ads on television all the time where people are saying, oh, gee, I thought I was German, but I was really Celtic instead. So I'm going to ask you once again, and I'll ask you again later, who are you? And where are you from? We can look at the biological origins of your genes and get a little bit of information about who you are and where you are from that. Now, the human code, DNA is a human code. It's not a humanity code. And it's unknown what many of the sequences of those genes mean. And we believe that DNA determines characteristics. Of course, this is something I used to teach in my biology classes. The DNA determines the phenotypic characteristics, the characteristics that you could actually see presented. You know, green eyes or blue eyes, color of skin, height of the person, and so forth. This is genetically determined to a great extent. And a small portion of what life, health, experiences, and feelings and growth are really all about. So we believe that it's just a small portion that what we know about DNA is just a small portion of what DNA is really all about. Could aspects of the soul also be recorded in DNA? Now that's kind of a big question here. Could aspects of the soul also be recorded in DNA? Can something in the energetic field show up in the physical field? Is it possible? And once again, who are you? And where are you from? Mutations change the code. Mutations in the DNA can change the code and can change the outcome or expression of one or many genes. A mutation is, like I said, that change in code. And when I say mutation, immediately some people think, oh no, mutation is bad. Well, mutation doesn't have to have a judgment with it. You might think of, for example, wow, if a species mutates, if there is a gene that mutates, it might allow for the digestion of a particular food that they weren't able to digest before, and therefore that is now incorporated into their genetic makeup, and that makes them better able to survive, for example. Now that's just a tiny example, right? We're not talking about mutant beings. We're talking about mutations that change the way an individual is represented all the time. These mutations happen all the time. And some of them work, they're viable, and some of them don't work. They're perhaps a miscode or a fatal code, possibly, or a disease code that can show up. So that's just a little bit about mutations. But what can influence or change the DNA? In other words, what can cause these changes? What can cause mutations? What can cause DNA to unravel? What can cause DNA to change so that it isn't as good anymore? Or maybe it's better than it was. What can cause these changes? Stress, toxins, poor nutrition, radiation can all cause changes that damage the DNA. So in this case, the change is not a good change, where we are constantly being exposed to stress, toxins, poor nutrition, radiation, and so many other things. Our DNA is actually becoming damaged. Does that influence who you are? Well, to some extent, it does change how you appear in the world. It may change your ability to function or move. It may change your ability to think or remember. And these can be very serious changes. So not very desirable, and yet this is what we're living in every day. But what about vibration? Can vibration change DNA? Well, we think yes. Now, here's an example, and I'll be sending some of this in a follow-up email as well. If you're on my Healer's Journey webinar list, you'll get some links that will help explain some of this. The science of cymatics is pretty incredible. I've practiced this at home as well, not with sophisticated equipment, just whatever I happen to have, and I found that I could create patterns like this too. So what we're looking at is a plate that can vibrate. It has some salt or sugar sprinkled on it. What you see over here on the right is a microphone that is beaming some sound frequencies at the plate. And just look at the pattern. Okay, there is a pattern that is forming based on the frequency that it is exposed to. Can sound affect matter? This is what cymatics is showing us. Sound does indeed affect matter. Sound, phonons, can convert to physical matter, photons. What you can hear becomes something that you can see. The non-physical becomes physical. Waves become influencing matter. It's a fascinating science, and we as healers on the healer's journey must be aware of vibration. We must be aware of how sound can affect us, who we are, and where we come from. So vibration. In terms of who we are and where we come from, let's talk about it in these terms. Gifts. What innate characteristics come through in your life? What are you good at? What are your talents? What are the things that you're always drawn to that bring joy into your life, that show that you are shining? What are your gifts, right? That's a vibration. What about behavior and patterns? Do you have a tendency to repeat experiences or show obvious likes and dislikes? We talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about karma. And there are people who tend to repeat behaviors. They grew up poor and they are always poor. They grew up in an unwell environment and they themselves are unwell. Smoking families may more often than not have children who smoke also. And I'm not saying this is written in stone. Of course, people change and grow out of that. They recognize the pattern and they shift that. They move away from the mentality of being poor and change their thoughts and beliefs that they are not poor, that they are actually filled with abundance and joy, or that they are well, or that they don't have to fall into the pattern of smoking or divorce or abuse or trauma or whatever else they grew up in, because they are in a different vibration. So all of these things, gifts, behavior, patterns, thoughts, and beliefs, whatever influences your choices, these are all vibrations. And so what we can do then is relate to it in a different way. DNA has its own vibrational frequencies. Atoms, molecules, bonds, and the space between the matter all vibrate. they're also influenced by vibrations. So imagine, even if you can't see it, it is moving, it is vibrating, and it is also influenced by other vibrations. Just like a magnet will influence the direction or pull of a magnetic metal, it'll attract iron, for example. Okay, well, there's a vibration there. There's an actual physical connection between what the magnet is doing and who it is and what the metal is doing. There's an attraction there. They harmonize with that frequency, and so they come together. Harmony. This is what we're talking about here. Atoms, molecules, bonds, and the space between the matter are all trying to harmonize with the energy of the universe. The universe was sound before it was matter. In fact, the universe produces sound. It makes a sound. There are scientists who record the sounds that are coming from space. And we, in our wholeness, are trying to vibrate in harmony with the sounds of the universe, with the sounds of nature, with the sound of the earth. Could we match the vibration of our physical DNA to that of our soul DNA? Soul DNA. Now, I alluded to that before. I didn't say it. Soul DNA. Do we have soul DNA? Is there something in your physical makeup that is only there because it's not how you were born into a family, it's not how your physical DNA is showing up, but it's how you are meant to be? Do we all have a journey? Are we expressing that journey through what is coming through from our soul? So could we match the vibration of our physical DNA to that of our soul DNA? And if so, how? We always have more questions than answers on the Healer's Journey webinar, but let's explore this for a moment. What would it look like, and what would it feel like if we could match the vibration of our physical DNA to that of our soul DNA? It might look like wholeness. It might be that we recognize who we are, or that we know where we're from. It might be more about our sense of being rather than our existence day to day. Do you see where I'm going with this? When you are living in alignment, when you are living in harmony with your soul DNA, and if you could just remember that and activate that, then perhaps that would be what wholeness feels like. That would be what recognizing who we are feels like, and how we can be in the world. As I said last week, we are spirit having a human experience. We are having a soul journey. As healers on the healer's journey, we must integrate our humanity with our divinity. We must integrate our physical DNA with our soul DNA. Who are we? Where are we from? Our purpose is our experience. We are building a higher consciousness. We're working on ourselves. That's where we start as healers. Always, we start on ourselves, right? I see you. I see your wholeness, your health, your light. And do you see that in yourself? Do you see your own wholeness? Do you see your own health? Do you see your own light and your own possibilities? I see that we are bound by a higher vibration and a sense of purpose. Do you see that that is where you are from also? That that is who you are? So resonate with your soul DNA. Remember who you are. Now, I wrote that as easily as anything, but it's hard for some people to remember who they are. We forget who we are when we get involved in life experiences, when we get involved in doing the soccer mom thing or walk the dog thing or go to work thing and pay the bill thing. We forget a little bit about who we are. But let's try just for a little while to remember who we are. Find your tribe. Now, this was very interesting for that person I was mentioning earlier on in the webinar when she said she was from a particular state, and I said, no, you're not. It's where you grew up, but that's not who you are. That's not where you're from. Where you're from is from this part of the world, and I told her where that was, and I also told her what it felt like to be from that part of the world and who her tribe was. I could see it. I could feel it. I knew it. When you develop your intuitive abilities, you can do that too. You can find your tribe based on the soul DNA. And claim your medicine. Claim your tribe. Claim your gifts and talents. Use them. If you are tucking them away, if you're tucking away your gifts and you're not using them, you are forgetting who you are. So they all go together. If you claim your medicine and you find your tribe, the people you are resonating with, the people you are meant to be in this world with, you're remembering who you are. So who is your tribe? Is your tribe one of healing? Well, it might be because you're on this webinar. You might be considering yourself as a healer and how to be in the world as a healer. And that's not always easy for some people because modern medicine is such a big thing, a big presence in the world. We have to actually remember who we are as healers, that we can do this. We can learn these skills and we can remember these skills all over again. We can claim our medicine. Remember, medicine isn't something that comes in a bottle. Medicine is more about our practice and more about the gifts that we receive from the earth. Activate your vibrations. Wow, if you could activate your vibrations, would that perhaps help you remember physically who you are? Very likely. Did you know that I have, and there exists, DNA and RNA frequencies in the form of tuning forks that can undo what was done, that can rebuild, reprogram, and cut the karmic cords? Did you know that tuning forks can help you remember who you are? There are. I'd like to offer you the experience of a chakra tune-up. The energy vitality technique uses solfeggio frequencies. You can experience that all by itself or integrate it into a full session. With the full session, I offer Reiki, I use solfeggio frequencies, I use DNA, RNA frequencies to help cut those karmic cords, to help shift the vibration and help activate your soul DNA. There's training coming up as well. Phase 1 training is at the end of August. Phase 2 training will be later on this fall, and Phase 3 training will also be before the end of the year. So Phase 1, 2, and 3 will all happen this year. If you are connected to me, you can register for those classes. We also have Illumination Reiki coming up. This is also a remembering of who you are. My daughter and I channeled this curriculum over several years, many years of working together and journaling independently. We're going to put that story out on our website, illuminationreiki.com. And you can attend classes for Illumination Reiki either in Portland, Oregon or Sedona, Arizona. We invite you to check out those classes on our calendar. And once again, where will your path lead you? Where will your vibration lead you? Will you remember who you are? Will you connect with your soul DNA and allow that to shine? I would love to know more about your journey. Please let me know what's going on in your life and connect with me by either phone or email. I would love to hear from you. The best way to reach me is through my website, secondnaturehealing.com. You can also go to illuminationreiki.com or email me, rosemary@secondnaturehealing.com. This is the webinar registration page. If you are not getting these webinars directly to your inbox, you can register and you'll begin to receive all the webinars that we have done so far. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you and would love to hear from you. Take care. Bye-bye.